Welcome, everyone. So you've made the cold call, you've done the appointment setting, you've set some relationship, you've built some rapport. There's a lot of good things going on. Now you've got the appointment. You're going to go to the house, you're going to walk the property. And I want to run through a quick overview of what it looks like, how we walk properties, how I personally approach these things. I make it a lot about the sellers. I make it a lot about the situation going on, the pain points, the motivation, all of the reasons. If you've pre-qualified this appointment as best to your ability. I know a lot of people do pre-qualifying differently. I know people who buy houses virtually completely and they don't even go look at the properties. So there's 100 different ways to get to this point, to the point of the front door, to the point of walking the property. But what I'm going to focus on is how we do things, and we make a ton of money walking through properties and pointing out certain things and how to navigate other things, and what to say and what not to say, and just not to get overwhelmed. But most importantly, while you're doing all of these things and weaving all of these webs, is to not forget, because things can move fast. And we don't want people to miss out on the big ticket items. We don't want people to miss out on some of the repair costs or some of the maybe the contingencies you might end up writing in the contracts later based on some of the stuff you saw at the property or the situation. The variables in this are so immense that I'm not going to even try to cover them all. I'm just going to explain how I do this in my own business, how I walk through properties and what I focus on, and things that I've learned and tips and things that have burned me over the years. Not too many things have burned me, but there's been a couple things that I didn't know starting out and people never pointed out. Some people watching this might not know what HVAC is. Some people watching this might not know the difference between plaster walls and drywall and paneling and sheetrock and concrete and brick, and the difference in repair costs just from one different room to the next. So I'm going to cover some of the basics, and I'm going to use a property I walked very recently here in St. Louis as an example on something that didn't work. But I follow in our business. It didn't work for us to buy it, is what I mean. But I want to use this as an example because this is something that is very easily overlooked. And if I didn't confirm the tax records being the correct layout of the property, being square footage, being bed bath count and stuff like that, which is something I have on my checklist here. And I also include a link to a property walkthrough checklist in the description of this video that you can download, you can save for yourself, just so you don't miss things on property walkthroughs. Because a lot of the times as investors, we only walk these properties one or two, maybe three times. But how we make a lot of money in our business is walking the property one time. And I sell that term to the homeowner. What I mean by that is I sell the convenience of us only being in this property one time. So that means you need to optimize the time that you're there. So let's dive right in. Walking through properties. Before you ever say anything to the homeowner, before you ever are walking through and even have anything to go on, you need to remember, be respectful. There's a good amount of rapport hopefully already built if you're to this point. You're knocking on the front door, you're opening that garage door, you're meeting the seller for the first time, and there's expectations and there's rapport already built, and there's expectations from your side of the table and there's expectations from their side of the table, and they're probably completely different. It's your job as an investor and where you're going to make more money and close more deals and build better relationships and get more referrals is from building better relationships and remembering to be respectful and not making this all about the property, not sitting there and beating them up on that roof that needs to be replaced. They know all of that stuff. People who have owned 20 properties, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they know everything that's going on with it more than you're ever going to on one property walkthrough, unless you've been doing this for as long as they've owned the property per se. But just remember to be respectful, and sometimes life is fast. So you just need to remember to stop right when you walk in that front door or open that garage door, the first time you meet them, and stop. And I have another video on this channel about, it's called Closing the Seller Before You Ever Show Up to the Appointment, because you need to know how to do that. You need to know how to pre-qualify somebody. So check that out on my channel, but let's keep going through the walkthrough here. So remember to introduce yourself and your partners and be respectful. I can't tell you how many appointments I've gone on with veteran investors who have done so many walkthroughs that they look at this appointment as just another thing, another appointment they have to do on their day, and they're not that involved. They don't really care. They're just there as the odd man out. They don't even, I think some of them don't even expect to be introduced. And I introduce everybody. I make it personable. I explain them. I say, we've done a bunch of work together. However that relationship is, use that, leverage it to you. It's good. It makes you look more professional. I've showed up at an appointment before with 5 or 6 people and 3 big work trucks on people that I've sold houses to, and the professionalism and the impact that had on that owner of that property that was in a distress situation. He complimented us and said, "Man, you guys showed up 30 minutes after I called you. You showed up. You guys executed. You brought everybody, all hands on deck." And that was respect. That was ownership. That was professionalism. That was punctuality. That was all of these things that go into executing to your expectation. But what I want to focus on right away is setting the stage and reminding the seller, because they have no idea how this stuff goes. They've probably never walked anybody through their property before. Some of these people have never even met an investor. They don't know what it looks like from your side of the table. They have no idea what you need to look at. They just assume, I'm going to show them the house, I want to get this over with. You want to stop that mindset immediately. You want to get them out of that mindset. So set the stage with how the appointment's going to go. It sounds so elementary, but you need to do it. You need to stop them before because they want to speed it up. They want to say, hey, here's the kitchen, we did this, we did that. Here's the bathroom, we did this. Here's the bedroom, it needs this, blah blah blah. They want to do that. So you need to slow them down. Slow it down, set the stage. Say, hey man, I really appreciate you taking the time to meet me here today. Here's my partner, Joe Bob. He's been with us for a few years now. We've done a bunch of business with him. Him and myself are going to walk through the property. We need to look at the condition of the bathroom. We need to look at the kitchen. We need to look at the floors. We need to look at the plumbing. We need to look at the HVAC. We need to look at the age of some of the bigger ticket items, and you start listing that stuff. And so now there's an expectation being built, right? So those expectations, you can approach that a couple different ways. And I don't want to get too off topic, but you can approach it by listing things. You can approach it by flat out telling them what you're going to do and look at. You can approach it by when you list those things, they're going to start building that list in their head. Okay, shoot, I need to show them this. I need to show them that. I need to show them that. I need to show them that. And I promise you, when you do that, it's incredible, because I've been walking out of a walkout basement before and forgot to look at something. It was an old hot water heater that was hidden by a wall, and I just didn't even put two and two together. And there was just so much going on. We had like 4 or 5 people with us, and the seller actually said, "Hey, didn't you tell me you need to look at the water heater?" And I said, "Oh yeah, duh." And so it's one of those things where, like, I set that stage so hardcore. He was showing us the stuff in the property that he was already checking off his mental checklist that he realized that we hadn't looked at. So you guys become friends, you become advocates. You guys all have the same goal here. Everybody wants to get the deal done. Let's just be professional about it. So you set the time frame, set the expectations of how it needs to go, what you need to look at. Hey, Mr. Seller, usually these appointments can be really quick. If you want us in and out in 5 minutes, that's cool. We can be really quick. But for us to cover all our bases and not have to walk the property again, give us a couple of extra minutes, give us 10, 15, 20 minutes. We're going to look at everything and just start listing everything out. So now you've bought some time. See how that works? So it's really simple. You're in control of this. I'm telling you, people that show properties to investors are in a situation, you've pre-qualified it, you've talked to them on the phone, they're in a situation that they probably don't want to be in. So just remember that you guys become advocates, you become teammates, you end up doing business together, and it ends up being a good working relationship. And so what that does as well is when you start giving yourself permission, giving the owner permission for how the appointment's going to go, how you guys are going to bob and weave this appointment that this person's never done, has no idea how it's supposed to go. You've told them now how it's supposed to go, and they might already know that. Guess what? Oh shoot, they're going to look at my 1972 plumbing stack that's got a crack in it, and I know it needs to be replaced. So they start spilling the beans on what's wrong and what's going on with their house or their property or whatever you're looking at. And it's amazing to me when you start being methodical and purposeful and professional, and you really say all of the things and you set that expectation of what's going to happen. Some owners start just spilling the beans. It's incredible. And if you don't stop and slow down and do the appointments in this way, you have not given somebody permission to talk to you in that way. So you can never, and I used to say this all the time, you can never be mad at somebody for expecting them to do something you never told them to do, right? So you cannot be mad at them. It's just like your significant other expecting them to know it's your anniversary. Like they're supposed to know that stuff. So maybe a bad example, but you can't be mad at them for not taking out the trash because you were mad about it last night and you didn't say anything about it and they didn't take it out on their way to work. You need to voice that. You can't be mad at them even two, 3, 4 times more mad at them the next day because you didn't set the expectation. Nobody knew. So a little off topic there, but so then you need to ask before you even start walking the property. Like I said, a lot of sellers are just going to want you to walk through the property. They have no idea how this goes. So ask if it's okay if you do your own walkthrough with, meaning without the seller or without anybody. And it's going to vary on if the property's occupied, how bad a condition it's really in, and stuff like that. Because if they're occupied, I just walked the property the other day where one of the children was quarantining, potentially had COVID. So we didn't go in that room. So if I didn't ask, hey, is there anything we need to know before we walk the property? And they told me, hey, my kid's quarantining. I don't think they're sick. They just had to get tested. Somebody at their school had COVID, yada, 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 whatever the story is. It ends up being really good. But it's one of those things where I asked that question and you need to ask that question because I got that information. So you either say, hey, do you guys just want us to take a quick look around? We'll be here, 5, 10, 15 minutes potentially. We can start on the outside, we can start on the inside, whatever you want to do. We usually spend a little bit more time on the inside. And is there anything that I need to know before we continue to move forward? You guys got big dogs locked up downstairs, whatever. Make a joke, make these things not stick to you. It's okay. This is not some weird thing. You're going to do so many of these appointments that it's going to be fun. It's going to be silly. You're going to see all kinds of stuff that you thought you'd probably never see. And we have like investor stories all the time. I promise you, if people see different things that they see at properties, they're like, oh man, yeah, it just ends up being a story. So it's really fun and cool stuff. But ask if it's okay to do that. Or just on the flip side of that, ask if they want to show you around. Everyone's different. So just don't forget that. And then, so I want to go through a really quick overview of what we look at. So roofs, this is a immediate property checklist from the exterior, right when you pull up to the property, the appointment. You don't even need to be talking to the person yet. They might not even be home. You're waiting on them, whatever the situation is. So you pull up roofs. If you can't tell the age of the roof, if there's no acid staining on it, or there's not shingles coming up, or you can't tell because the gutters were replaced, but the roof wasn't, so it looks a little weird, you're not too sure, just ask the seller. Every single appointment I do, I ask the seller, do you know how old the roof is? Even if it looks brand new, I ask that question every single time. And some of them are going to say, yes, I do. I have the paperwork. Yes, it's under warranty. Yes, the insurance company replaced it 3 years ago because of hail, or no, it needs to be replaced. I haven't been here in 10 years, whatever the story is. And if you're unsure, just include it in your budget. It could be a $4,000 to $10,000 or $15,000 expense. It just really depends on the house, the architecture, everything that goes on. So just budget that. You feel free to reach out to a local roof specialist. Most of them give you free quotes anyways. A lot of them give you free quotes over the phone. If you just tell them I need a full roof, single layer, there's one layer on it right now, or if there's 3 layers on it and it's got some pitting in it, we might need sub layers. We don't know. Just give us a ballpark, So it's just, don't overcomplicate this stuff. We're just trying to get a ballpark figure to make a good offer on, especially if the property's in really rough shape. I think we make more money as investors when the properties need more work, as far as wholesaling goes and rehabs, because owners don't know what stuff costs. So it works in your favor. So then along the lines of roofs, gutters and downspouts and the soffits, the roof soffits that run around the outside of the overhangs on some of the roofs, depending on what part of the country you're in, it's going to have different construction styles. But I always say too, when I ask questions about the exterior stuff, I always put it in the seller's court. I say, hey, well, it looks like the outside has taken a lot of wear over the years. What have you guys done? This and that. Make a joke about the weather. Everybody jokes about weather and awkward, elevator moments, quote unquote. And then another thing to point out is retaining walls are huge, big ticket deal killers. Sometimes we've had some 4 or 5 foot retaining walls kill deals here in St. Louis. And then landscaping is something that I think is overlooked a lot. And I only put overgrown trees on power lines in here, right here, unfortunately, but I should have put more along the lines of tree removal, because we've had we've had 2 trees cost $8,000 before. We've had 1 tree cost $12,000 before. We've had 1 tree that was a smaller tree cost $1,000 before. So once again, most tree trimming companies will do free estimates. This is nothing that you need to spend time or money on. You just need to have it in your mind when you're walking properties. And landscaping, like I said, you could budget a normal $1,500 landscaping cleanup on every single budget that you run on a rehab, unless it's perfectly fine. We pretty much do that. We include all of that because you're gonna have to do something with the outside on vacant properties most of the time. And then decks or patios. Decks are along the lines of fences. Eat your rehab budget up. Decks for are anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000. I mean, decks are expensive. They cost a fortune to do. But it's fine as long as that's on your side and you can voice all of that stuff and have a checklist on your walkthrough and budget for all that. You're fine. Most owners of properties that have never updated a deck in 15, 20 years are choosing not to because of how expensive it is. They know that it's that expensive. So point out the deck if it looks old. 100%. I have opened the back slider to a kitchen door before out back of a deck and looked at it, and I said, I don't feel comfortable walking on that. What does that tell a seller? It's got to be replaced 100%. It was a 2-story deck, was like a $15,000 or $16,000 fix on a repair budget we did. It didn't need everything, but it did need the whole top layer, needed the railings, needed the footing, and needed all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, it's just a big repair item that you need to remember to look. I put patios because sometimes you can get creative and just remove decks and then put patios in their place, on single story or walkout basements and stuff like that, where you don't need to get crazy and the market stays strong and you can kind of get a little creative in that aspect. But always point it out, it just helps your repair budget, helps you negotiate better down the road. And then overgrown trees and power lines, huge. You got to point that stuff out. You got to get different companies to come in. Sometimes the city has to do it depending on the property lines. Sometimes you have to have the neighbors approval to do stuff because the trees are so overgrown. It just becomes another thing that you need to remember to look up. I promise you, we've had to back out of contracts. I know people who have backed out of countless contracts because of tree work. And then age of siding, I put that in here because asbestos is so common here in St. Louis for the big old shingled tiles siding that's on a lot of houses. So I put that in here on purpose because we do come up across that, which requires you to get permits and specialized equipment to remove all that stuff. But you can cover it up in some cases, but it is something to be mindful of. And then windows. Sounds obvious, but windows. How old are they? Are they standard size, and are they custom size? Right when you pull up to a property, I count the windows across the front property. I count if they meet on the edges of corners. I count if they're 3 feet, 4 foot tall, or they're ceiling tall windows. Whatever that is, some of them are going to cost way more than others. Once again, you don't need to know all of this stuff. You just need to know somebody that you can call. Even if they can give you a quote off the exterior pictures of the outside of the house, they can give you a quote, a pretty good ballpark quote on what it's going to cost to replace all the windows in a house. A lot of the houses we buy, if they have those aluminum, older style windows, they all get replaced anyways. I do know some landlords who keep them, but I think it's terrible. I know tenants who hate them, and they're drafty, and your heater just works overtime, and we just don't like them. If you're going to buy and hold a property for forever or for 20, 30 years and try to have a rental out of it, just put new windows in it if it requires it. It's just so much less of a headache. And then basement. So I'll get into a huge basement breakdown here in a minute, but from the outside, you need to see if it has a basement, if it's a slab house, or if it has a crawl space. Some people don't like crawl spaces. Some people don't like slabs. Some people don't like basements. It doesn't matter. Just be mindful and remember that you're looking at that from the exterior of the house, and then ask, because I've been in a house before and not realized that there was no basement. And I said, okay, where's the stairs of the basement? And they said, what do you mean there is no basement? Kind of just makes you look stupid, right? So you earn your stripes however you need to remember to look for that stuff. And then, like I said before, bed bath count and square footage size seems on point. And the reason I'm going to use the examples on the next slides here for the walkthrough that we did, that we didn't end up putting under contract, we didn't end up buying, we didn't go through our due diligence. And I use this example because the bedroom count isn't the same when we walked the property. So it was off. And we actually we backed out, our buyers backed out, our contractors told us the numbers just weren't there for a 1-bedroom standpoint. And then important property checklist, type of walls throughout: brick, sheetrock, paneling, or plaster. Just be mindful of that stuff. You can move a lot of stuff from the walls and still save the walls. It's not a huge deal. And then if you're going to try to reconfigure the walls, and like open up a wall to bigger kitchen and all the open concepts that everybody's doing in HGTV and all that stuff, make sure, here's a tip that I didn't know first starting in real estate. You can peek in the attics and you can look to see what doesn't have load bearing supports on it from the attic trusses and stuff like that. And a lot of them are kind of obvious. Some of them aren't that obvious. So feel free to throw around that idea while you're on the walkthrough. And a lot of sellers like to throw around that talk too. Once you start talking about what you could do to the property, they get all excited and they're like, oh man, yeah, that sounds great. I would do that. It's up to you. Use that with discretion. And then along with counting windows, I always count the interior doors and the closet doors. That's all part of your rehab budget. Some companies I know just have a generalized $1,500 to $2,500 budget for interior doors. I like to count them, and the seller actually sees me counting them, and it just adds that, drives it home. They're seeing me do my due diligence, and it just kind of adds that another layer of professionalism and being precise on my numbers and looking at what I'm up against. And some sellers like that. Some sellers do not give a damn, I promise. And then the age of the kitchen. If you could save anything like the cabinets or the countertops, cool, save that stuff. A lot of times we just budget a very generalized repair cost on what it's gonna cost to redo the entire kitchen based on the neighborhood. So don't over rehab a house. Don't put granite countertops, and I'm going to reiterate this again here in a minute. Don't put granite countertops in a house in a rental neighborhood where the ARVs are 50, 60,000 and it's a rental area and stuff there's high crime and stuff gets broken into all the time. There's no need to overdo a rehab like that. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot, I promise you. So we usually renovate entire kitchens, usually renovate entire bathrooms. Check the plumbing and the subfloor. There's a tip I didn't know to look for is subfloors underneath whatever flooring. If there's a basement, you can look up from underneath to see the subflooring where any water is, any bathrooms are. There's usually water damage of some kind underneath on the subfloor in bathrooms. What you're looking for is to make sure that it's savable, or if you need to rip it out and redo it, there's a lot of things that go into it. Just make sure you're being due diligent and let people know, because I've had sellers look up from underneath with me, be like, oh man, yeah, I never noticed that. And so it works in your favor when you negotiate these deals. I promise you, the more you make them aware of, the better deals you're going to do. So, and then electrical panels and the age of the service, the amp size, service, etc. So if it's got an old 50 amp service, 100 amp, 200 amp, whatever you need to do to bring up code. I can't get into any specific codes for wherever you're watching this in the country. I cannot by any means even start to do that. We'd like to do all of ours 200 amp services here in St. Louis. I have 125 in my house right now, I believe, but it needs to be updated before I sell it. I'm going to update it, so it's not a problem. But and then number of light fixtures is another thing that I like. Number of light fixtures and switches and dimmer switches and all this other stuff that goes into it, outlet boxes and all that stuff. I like to count that stuff because once again, it's not a generalized thing, and some companies do generalize a package for a budget that they do on some renovations. For me, I just count them, and it's just one of those things. I'm just checking off stuff when I'm walking through properties, and sellers see me do it. And then the age of the plumbing stack. If you can see it, it's great. On basements and stuff like that, you can see them. Some of them have access panels. You're supposed to have access panel. You're supposed to be able to have a clean out as well. Some people don't have them. They just cover them up over the years. They haven't had an issue with their plumbing, but you need to try to get eyes on the plumbing stack. Because if it's old cast iron, if it's rusted out and it's all screwed up, whatever, you got to point that stuff out. And it's, for us, it's $1,500 to $2,000 usually to replace that stuff. We buffer in a little bit extra just in case, because nothing ever goes right with a rehab. Anybody watching this knows that. And then number of, so it needs to be PVC, ideally. And then the flooring condition throughout. If it can be saved, carpet, just get rid of it. The subfloor condition, like I said before, is very, very, very smart to look at, because if you could just lay down some laminate flooring in a bathroom in a rental over a subfloor that works and is secured and is safe, it's completely different than having to rip out and gut a bathroom floor and then start over. It's completely different. So, and then pay attention while you're too on an important property checklist, the wood trim or crown molding. I don't see a lot of crown molding here in the Midwest in St. Louis on the investment properties that we look at, but it is something to be mindful of, because a lot of it is cool, but a lot of it gets messed up over the years, and it's something that if you take out, there might be hidden things behind it. So I always just say, we'll look out for the trim, the crown molding, and stuff like that. Can you get creative in any of those aspects too? I know some people who just do the square moldings around the historic windows because it's cheaper and looks just fine. So exterior door conditions. Exterior doors are I say it can be, but they are always more expensive than interior doors. They're always more expensive. So just make sure you account for the number of, if you have to get sliding doors that are glass for a kitchen, or if you have to get a storm door for the garage, just be mindful that stuff is always more expensive, usually, unless you're buying high-end stuff, than just your normal exterior bedroom or interior bedroom doors. And then, so they can always cost more. Paint and drywall repairs. Sounds very obvious, but I'm telling you, it is amazing how many nicks and little holes and silly things and paint chips that happen on walls after a tenant moves out when a tired landlord wants to sell a property, and you end up being a person that's walking it. And just be mindful of that. Look for anything that needs to be fixed on the walls. Don't just peek in a room and be like, oh, it looks okay. There's stuff that you're going to miss. And then let's dive into the next one. Important property checklist: basement. So here, if the property has a basement, if it doesn't, cool, it doesn't matter. Check the stairs condition. I always take a kind of a big hop. I weigh about 220, 225. I always take kind of a good, nice first hop on that first step on the basement stairs, because it's going to tell me a lot about the condition of those stairs. And if I think they're safe and I'm going to have to do anything to them, a lot of times we just refinish them. A lot of times they just get repainted, especially if the basement's not finished. It's okay. There's a bare minimum requirement there for safety. It's not that big of a deal. And then just be mindful of the smell too, because a lot of basements have different odors and smells. And if it smells like water, ask about it. Even if you don't see it, you need to ask, hey, has there ever been any water in this basement? Yada, yada, yada. You need to know that stuff. And that goes back to what I brought up before, which is you need to give the seller and the whole appointment permission to each other to be open about what's going on with this property. Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't have a clue. They haven't been up to date. That's why they have this problem. They've been avoiding it. So, and then I put, is it a walkout basement or not? Walkout basements, you can get creative with different types of patios. You can get creative with square footage. You can rezone square footage. You can get egress. You can put all kinds of different things going on. But I put utility type on the basement checklist, because if there's a basement, that's usually where the utilities are, as far as the air conditioner comes in from the outside. And then the gas heater, is it gas? Is it electric? Is it the furnace? Is it a heat pump? You have a thermal heating through the earth? Or you have old stove burners? Or what's going on? How updated or how messed up is this property? And then the age of the utilities. Here's a tip I did not know starting out in real estate. Look at the labels. If you could read the label on any of the furnaces or anything, the serial numbers you can usually type into the internet and it's going to tell you the age of the unit. Our general rule of thumb, if it's 10 to 12 years or newer and it's still functional, we do a service on it. We check it, we clean the vents and all that stuff, but we do not replace the units. Anything older, 15 years or older, we 100% replace on every single property. And some sellers are struggle to understand that because they've never had an issue. But guess what? You're probably about to have an issue. So it just helps on the flip side when you sell a property, update that stuff. People love new utilities. And then are the walls bowing in or out? Sounds very obvious, but walk up to the walls and look at them. Look, see if they're bowing in. Look at the trusses. Look to see if there's termite damage, which I probably should have put that on here too. But look for any sort of wood issues that are fungus or mold or anything in the rafters of the basement. Look at all that stuff. Take a flashlight and walk through a bunch of the rafters. You know, it's up to you how diligent you want to be on these appointments. And sometimes the sellers just want an offer. They don't care how diligent you are. Just budget in a big repair budget. It's okay. If they don't let you look at that stuff, that's their fault. You say, hey, I'm just trying to get a good number for you. If you don't want to spend this amount of time, I'm just going to budget in more for what I don't, for the unknowns. And people actually understand that. Don't think they don't. I promise you. So are the walls bowing or out from the foundation or bowing in? Are there any cracks? Some of them are going to be very obvious. Some might not be so obvious. I take videos of all that stuff on my phone or my iPad, and I do take videos sideways down the walls to see if I can see any bowing and stuff like that, because that could void all kinds of issues on inspections. There could be all kinds of issues with foundations. And then if there's been recent repairs in the foundations, ask for documentation or warranty paperwork. It does not matter in my mind if somebody spent $10 or $15, $20,000 on a basement fix, basement complete repair. They ripped out, they did hydrostatic pressure relief and all this other crazy stuff. If they do not, and epoxy and all this stuff, if they do not have warranty paperwork, I don't care. It is the same to me as it's still being messed up, because that is where the money is in basement repairs when you transfer it to a different owner. So that might sound harsh, and you might be thinking that's going to kill a deal for you right away. But I promise you, that seller will start digging through paperwork and calling the company when you say, nope, I got to add $15,000 extra to my repair budget because you don't have paperwork for this basement repair. I don't know if ABC Towing Company came in here and they've never done a basement repair in their life, and you just hired Joe Schmo from Home Depot to do it. I have no idea. I need paperwork. I tell people that all the time. And then don't forget to look at the basement windows, basement window conditions, see if there's water running in, see if there's proper drainage on the outside, see how the topography is with the ground outside of the windows. All that stuff needs to be factored in, especially if there's an obvious sign of water or staining or rust or anything like that. And then egress options. This I don't want to get too sidetracked with this because this could make or break comps definitely on certain homes. If you're trying to make a deal work at 100,000 and you really need to have the basement finished and the ARV is 200, but the seller's stuck on 100 and you need to be at 70, but you could come up to 100 if you could finish that basement and get an egress window and all these other variables that come into spending $3 or $4 grand on digging out egress and putting an egress window in. Like I said, not going to get too sidetracked with it, but that sometimes can make or break it when you're getting more creative on a deal. I promise you, the competition for deals out there is definitely growing. And so if you got to put in an egress window, contact a local company that can do them or contact a general contractor. There's all kinds of companies. Foundation companies will have referrals that can come in and backhoes and dig out the egress and put the egress window in. It's not a big deal, but just be mindful that is an option. If you want to go that direction, you can blow out comps in a neighborhood if you finish a basement and do it the right way. It's not all that unheard of. And then so roughed out plumbing options for added bathrooms. Sometimes there's gonna be plumbing that comes out of the basement subfloor, and that's potential for adding an extra bedroom. Some newer houses, I know that's standard. They build it into every single build. And then just any other mixed use or creative use for the basement. Just be mindful. There's other uses for basements. You can advertise them as different ways. Some of them have drive around, wrap around garages that you could potentially have a second storage for cars. If motorcycles, it just really depends on the deal. I can't get too sidetracked with it, but there's just other mixed uses or creative uses for basements. There's all kinds of uses for them. So let's dive into the example I referred to earlier. This is a property we walked a couple weeks back now here in St. Louis. We thought it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 808 square foot property. We looked at this as a rental. The seller was asking $25,000. We thought it was worth 60 or 70 fixed up. Perfect. We thought this was a deal all day. We thought we were walking this appointment to put it under contract. That's just how we thought. We were excited. And then everything kind of went downhill. So we walked up. We waited for a good while. The seller was pretty late, which is no big deal. He lives in another state. And so we pulled up and I see this boarded up window right here. And I was a little confused. I didn't understand why that was boarded up. So obviously you need to remember to look at that stuff when you go on the inside of the house. And on the next slide, I'll show you why that was important. And then the other thing that he told me the air conditioning was out. So I knew that, but then he confirmed it. If he hadn't told me that, I confirmed it from the street level with this AC unit in the window here. I'm telling you, not very many people put on an 800 square foot house if your central air conditioning works, you're not going to have a window unit in the kitchen. Like you're just not going to have that. It's just not something that people normally do unless there's a reason. So that's what we noticed. And what we want to remember is walking into this property, what are we noticing? So we wanted to confirm it's 2 beds, 1 bath. And why I brought up this window is because if it's sealed off on the inside, which it ended up being, we have to reside this and we have to match the siding, all that stuff that goes into that. And the front windows looked like they were vinyl. This one did not match. And then the front door probably could have stayed. And then the soffits right here needed to be repainted. The roof was about 15 years old because I asked him, like I tell everybody to do that does property walkthroughs. And then the garage was a little messed up, but they tried to match this ugly green siding. We probably could get away with painting it. But it's up to you. Use your discretion however you rehab houses. But from our outside point of view, this property needs siding potentially. It needs painted, it needs soffits, it needs roof, and then it probably needs a garage door, and it needs HVAC. Doesn't really need much landscaping, so this is very rare on properties, but this is why we thought this was a deal before we ever walked it, because it just checked a lot of good boxes for us. Until we got eyes on it, everything kind of started going downhill to kind of disqualify itself from the numbers point of view. Still makes sense on paper to do this as a rental, but this just needs too much. So huge tip here. When you go look at a property, so this right here, this would be not the far side of the house. This right here is the side that when you come home and you live here, you see the side of the house every single time you come home. This is the side of the house you never see. Like everybody who has a house, when you come home, there's always a side of your house that you haven't seen in 6 months because you never see it. Especially if you live in the cold and you're in a colder climate, you're not going to walk outside unless there's something wrong going on the far side of your house. So I always call it the far side of your house because people don't ever walk over here. If you live here, there's no reason for you to ever go over here, except for cutting the grass and stuff. And so on this one, this needs windows. You got to keep counting your windows on this one. A little bit unique window here. And then the AC that was old, now dated right here, that obviously needs to be replaced, didn't work. So we just wanted to confirm all that, that was what was going on. You need some power washing here on the gutters and everything else. You need to clean up the siding, but it needs windows, it needs air conditioning. Everything was confirmed on these pictures. And so let's just keep moving forward. We walked in the back of the house through the back door, and this was the kitchen we walked into. Not what we were expecting at all. The high ceilings, they used to have a drop ceiling, which is cool. The guy took it out, but it just needs to be painted, needs to be finished off. And we would have to rehab this whole kitchen. In the seller's point of view, this was almost rent ready. No, you don't have any flooring, sir. You don't have any doors. They're still exposed. You got to put drywall here. There was so much work that still needed to go into this property. You can see all the lumber here on the ground. The guy was still working on the property very actively. And this was that front room. I don't know why. This is a perfect example of over rehabbing a house that doesn't make sense for a rental neighborhood. He was rehabbing this house as a flip. He tore down every single piece of drywall, took down the drop ceilings, raised the ceilings up, resupported the middle of the house, and put a closet back into this middle room here. And ran new HVAC. That this is the actual porch right here. That used to be a porch. That's now a room. It's a useless room. You can't do anything with it. It's only like 40 square feet. It's not a bedroom. It's an entryway, but it's now enclosed and it's part of your house. And then this is where right here would be that exterior window that he covered up. So I talked to him about that. Understandable why he did it. But walking in here was just really confusing what was going on. It just didn't make sense. We would have to undo a bunch of stuff he did. And then this was a picture of that front entryway I'm talking about. This is a concrete floor. It used to be a patio. It was never enclosed, and somebody enclosed it and they put a window unit here. And sure, somebody could have been using this as a bedroom. I have no idea, but we could not claim this as a bedroom. It's too small. It's the entryway to the house. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work legally. And then I just want to remind people, this was downstairs. The guy was a handyman. He was an electrician. He had a buddy that was certified that make sure he pulled permits for this. He put a big old 200 amp service in this house, and I made sure he ran electric. I was looking at all the work that they did, and I think they overdid it. I don't know. It was just silly that they would come out and hang out and do the work and spend hours on something that should take a licensed electrician just an afternoon to do. So it was just kind of silly, overdone, over rehabbed. Didn't really make sense. But there was a lot of good things going on. This is a really good service in the house, really cool. We wouldn't have to do anything with it. Just get it inspected, make sure it was up to code. And then, so repair costs. I do not want to give anybody actual repair costs. I cannot do that. I will just steer you in the wrong direction. Refer to your local resources for estimated repair costs for any repairs you need to remodel a home, landscaping, inspections, appraisals, close all the closing costs aren't even the same for title companies. I cannot even begin to tell you what things are going to cost. I can give you a quick breakdown that when we do a mid-level kitchen, we budget about $6,500 to $8,000 to redo the whole kitchen. A mid-level bathroom on a rental neighborhood is about $3,500 to $5,000 if we're ripping everything out and putting all brand new in. And it's just that those are kind of very, very, very rough ballparks. But just know you don't have to be an expert on this stuff. The price is going to vary. And frankly, if you got 10 estimates and 10 contractors to come to any property and give you 10 estimates on the repair budget, you're going to get 10 completely different numbers. And that's where you build your relationships and do your due diligence and have a good general contractor and have a good team behind you. And the more you do this and the more properties you take down, whether they're rough and they needed a little or needed a lot, you're going to start building better relationships. You're going to keep going back to the same people. You're going to have better referrals. All good things are going to happen, but I cannot begin to start to give you what repair costs are. I can tell you that the average repairs on properties that we buy is probably anywhere from 20 to 40,000 is probably our sweet spot. Anything over that kind of gets to be a creative deal where we're doing conversions and bigger blown out rehabs where we're changing bedrooms and walls and everything like that, which is totally fine. But I would say the core amount of properties we buy is the sweet spot's about 20 to 25. And then we do them all the way up to about 40, 45. But anything over that starts to get a little crazy and more creative, and there's something else going on. So if you're just doing kitchens, baths, flooring, paint, a little bit of drywall, a little bit of updating, and there's not any crazy major problems with the foundation and stuff like that, you're probably looking 30 to 40,000. That's just for me in the Midwest. So it could be completely different wherever you are. And then, like I said before, don't overestimate a property. Don't over rehab a property. It's like the pictures I just showed you. This guy has no competence of what's going on in the neighborhood. He thinks this property is worth 70, 80,000. Perfect. But he doesn't realize from an investor's point of view, if we were to buy this and put a tenant in it, none of this makes sense. We can't claim this as a bedroom. We can't claim the other. I didn't put a picture in here, but there was another bedroom in here that it was off the back of this room that had a walk-through bathroom. It just didn't make any sense. And the bathroom was severely over rehab too. We put way too nice of stuff in it. And from our side of the table, it's just more maintenance. It's more maintenance repairs that are going to be factored in later. It's like having a big gumball tree in your front yard you didn't take down when you bought a property. Now you're just going to be sending a cleanup crew over there 3 or 4 times every fall to clean up all the gumballs. It's insane. It ruins properties. So yeah, I can't begin to give you repair costs, guys. I apologize, but I just can't. So let's go through the logistics here. You have set the stage for a 10 to 20 minute appointment. Use your discretion, however you guys want to do it. I leverage our quickness and our time in our business to do these quick and methodical. And I usually bring a group of people with me. You want the seller associating you with someone who does exactly what the hell they say they're going to do. And I cannot tell you how many times I've been thanked for doing that. And I respect that when I deal with people, when they just do what the heck they say they're going to do. It's such a relief. So, that's all they want. Just honor that timeline, respect their time and respect your time. Depending on how much stuff you got going on that day, there are some sellers who will talk to you for hours. And we have some people on our team who will carry on those conversations forever. And that's totally fine. You might get deals doing that stuff, but you need to respect their time because they might not even respect their time. So, it will vary, but just honor what you say. That's the main point I'm trying to make. And then always leave the seller with your business card and be professional. We have literally closed deals from properties like the property I just showed you on the previous slides right here. We didn't buy this house, and that's totally fine. We didn't buy the house. I gave him my business card. He was impressed. We did everything. We brought our crew. He liked us. He understood why it didn't make sense for us, and he now knows us as a resource. That's all you need. That's the best possible outcome from a house you didn't buy. So just don't trip over the fact that something might not work. Every seller you meet is a potential referral for you and a potential house you buy somewhere else down the road. And then also, don't be afraid to make offers on every single property, no matter what. More offers equals more money. So that property I just showed you, I did not want to make an offer on. I had to make an offer on it. I told him, I said, hey, Mr. Seller, this property is not going to work for us. Do you want me to still make an offer for it to you just so you have something? He said, sure. What's your number at? I said, I'm at 8,000. and that's a 80, $70,000 property. He's like, oh, how'd you come up with that, man? You know, and then we start backtracking and explaining, I can't look at this as a 2-bedroom. It only is going to rent for $600 a month or $650, this and that. We got to redo a bunch of stuff. Like, it's just not, I think the best bet of this property is for you to continue doing the work that you want to do on it. I'm disqualifying myself and just go down the wormhole that way. So, but he still loves us. Nothing, no bad juju came of it. Everything was really positive, and just it's something that you get from making offers. When you make offers and you explain you're so far apart on something, potentially, if that's how it is, other things start to happen, other doors start to open, and other things start clicking for people. So make offers on every single property. And if you guys enjoyed this, subscribe to my channel. I try to put out as much free, dumbed down content as I can about real estate investing. In this particular video is walking through properties. It's how to structure your appointments. And there's going to be a link in the description for another video on my channel about how to mentally close somebody before you ever even show up to that appointment. So be sure to check that out. And until next time, see you.